Welcome back, everybody, to Watcher of All Things. My name is Kiki, and this is my podcast where I talk movies, TV shows, and all things entertainment. And today, it is episode 62, where we're talking Severance Season 2, something I have enjoyed every single week. I'm excited to dive into some deep theories today. Of course, we're going to do lots of discussion about the season finale that was last night, an extra long episode. But before we get into that, I hope you're all doing well. What a week it's been. I had my job interview tonight. I'm actually volunteering at a TV station, which is going to be really cool. I filmed my YouTube video this week, so you can look forward to that coming out. This is coming out on Monday, but this week it'll be coming out either Wednesday or Friday, depending how the editing goes. And I will finally reveal what the YouTube video is, because I don't think I have yet. Well, I am ranking the MCU franchises. That's why I've been watching so many MCU movies. I really enjoy ranking videos where you can weigh out the pros and cons of everything and sort of what is this thing about versus the others. But look forward to that next week. But I just want to say timestamps. Of course, there's a non-spoiler section and a spoiler section. The spoiler section, I'm actually going on the Severance subreddit, and I'm going to read a bunch of theories and comments and general ideas of where the show could go and what things mean, which is really fun to me. I love just diving into internet forums and reading all of the theories from other fans. And I have a few of my own as well, and of course my reaction to the finale. But we're going to talk about the whole season. I'll try to keep it non-spoilers, but it is hard to talk about, later episodes versus the earlier episodes and general things without spoiling a previous episode. So maybe just keep that in mind if you don't want to know anything about the show because you are planning on watching it. Just listen to the news section where we have lots of stuff to cover. And then what else I watched? I have so many things to talk about. I watched a lot of movies and a lot of TV this week. So let's get into it. Let's get into the news. All right, our first piece of news, Mickey 17 is projected to lose $75 million in its theatrical run. It was also announced that it would be going on video on demand just like 18 days after a theatrical run, which is just pathetic. But let's dive into this. I think I predicted on this show that it wouldn't break $100 million. Well, at the moment, after 2 weeks of release, according to Variety, Mickey 17 has earned $35.7 million domestically and $92.2 million worldwide. The film was projected to end its theatrical run with $175 to $180, including $52 million domestically and $123 million internationally. It is not reaching those, absolutely not. I don't know what it was. People are maybe put off by the political commentary, or the word of mouth isn't as good. Actually, the other night I was at the movies and I was writing a Letterboxd review for one of the movies I saw on Monday night, and this group of women had walked out of the Mickey 17 screening that was beside the bench I was sitting on, and you could tell they had never seen a Bong Joon-ho film, and they were just a group of people that weren't really aware of what the movie was going to be, because they were like, oh wow, that was so political. And I was like, oh man, you have not seen like Snowpiercer or Okja, haven't you? But having said that, it is probably his least subtle movie. And of course I immediately heard them talking about Trump, like, oh, I thought Mark Ruffalo was doing a Trump impression, and I was like, yeah, fair enough. So I think maybe that's what's putting people off, is the fact that like, oh, it's a political movie, I already have enough politics at home and on the news and stuff, so why would I want to watch it in my movies, when people fail to realize that every movie's political. But let's get back to the box office numbers. This is disappointing, but not surprising. It's a Bong Joon-ho film. I don't think it's going to break $1 billion. I mean, its break-even point was $300 million, because usually you have to do roughly double of what the budget was, because, a film's budget can be like $90 million, but then there's a bunch of marketing money that goes into it. So Mickey 17 had a budget of $180 million, and it is not going to break even, guys. But at the same time, who cares? It was Bong Joon-ho's blank check film. It was a lot of fun. It's still my favorite of the year, I would say, although I saw another movie this week that I'm going to talk about and what else I watched that was very close. I mean, the dream is that, like, you would hope maybe it can sort of break even with the rentals and buying and video on demand stuff at home, but I don't know. I don't think it'll have the popularity on streaming. Like, it's so hard to tell, because you could tell last year with Furiosa, critically, it did so well. Like, it was universally loved. People were raving about it, and it was one of the best movies of the year. Absolutely. It was my, third favorite movie last year. But Mickey 17 has been, it's mostly positive reactions, but it's been very, mixed word of mouth, and its cinema score was like a B or something like that, which I don't know how much that affects people in Canada, but I know in the States, cinema score is a lot more popular. That's when they ask someone when they're walking out of the theater, what do you think? And then they give it like an average rating, letter grade. But yeah, it is kind of worrying that the start of the year box office wise has been pretty rough, and 2025 has been a rough year for movies in general. Like, we haven't had a lot of real hits. I think just this week we finally started to gain some momentum with some fun movies in the last 2 weeks or 1 week, I would say, but I think it's gonna start getting better. I don't know, hopefully next week's movie and April, other than the Minecraft movie. I think April we have Sinners, we have Drop, which is apparently very fun, so I'm intrigued. I'm sort of worried that like the box office is just gonna keep falling and falling and falling, and the financial aspects of Hollywood right now have been on my mind a lot, considering one of the movies that I watched this week. And if you follow me on social media, you know I put out a review on Thursday for one movie and I was absolutely scolding it. I sort of felt bad after for picking out a certain performer in the film, but at the same time they are very much part of the problem, or they're not part of the problem, but they are very much a representation of the shifting industry, as well as the two directors who did it. You can probably figure out who I'm talking about, but we'll talk about it in what else I watched. But anyways, Mickey 17 not doing well. I don't think it's going to have the same life on video on demand as Furiosa did or some other movies have, so it's probably never going to make that money back. And there was an interesting story that said they had tested 2 possible versions in like the test screenings before, and the second version had tested much better and scored way higher compared to the one that did release, that was Bong Joon-ho's final cut. I'm trying to remember who mentioned that. Maybe it was House of Cinema, or was it the Weekly Planet? It was on another podcast. I was listening to their Mickey 17 episode, and I think they said there was a rumor about the 2 test screening versions, and that the one that we did get was Bong Joon-ho's final cut, and that's why Warner Brothers was maybe nervous about it. But at the same time, I like that we got his vision and just let him have his goofy English comedy blank check film. But let's move into another Warner Brothers story. All right, well, this week Warner Brothers quietly buried 95 years of animation history. So it was revealed this week that Warner Brothers has taken down all of the Looney Tunes original short films from Max. The decision came as part of Warner Brothers' new direction for their streaming service to focus on, quote, adult and family programming. Curiously, Looney Tunes fell under the children's section of Max, even though the original shorts were family-oriented productions as opposed to exclusively for a young demographic. As CBR is reporting, this controversial move by Warner Brothers is reflective of the studio's short-sighted perspective of Looney Tunes, which has one of the most gigantic fan bases in animation and represents their general disdain for the cartoons that made Warner Brothers a major cinematic player. Yeah, we're going to talk about Looney Tunes in another story in a moment, but also I saw a Looney Tunes film this week that was absolutely great and so much fun that I would encourage every family to go see. If, you know, with your kids, if you're looking to go to a family movie, this is the one. And they just did not market it. They wanted to bury it, and now they're doing the same thing on HBO Max or whatever the hell they're calling it now. I thought they were like changing the color of the logo so it looked like HBO, but still calling it Max. But Warner Brothers is an absolute mess. And there was also another story this week that, and it's sort of indicative of their strategies, and just like CBR was saying there, how short-sighted they are. Warner Brothers is so poorly managed, and there is also rumors that Peter Safran is being looked at to step up and be sort of the main, whatever it is, like executive producer of Warner Brothers instead of Matt DeLuca. And is it Matt DeLuca and the one other person? That would take him away from DC, which I think is a really stupid idea. But they also have sort of behind the scenes been putting all of this pressure on Superman, and that if Superman flops, the studio will probably have to be bought out by someone else because they just cannot afford it anymore. David Zaslav is an insane entity in this world. Like, some of the decisions he makes are truly remarkable, with the deleting of Batgirl and the deleting of Coyote versus Acme, which apparently they wiped from all of the memories and everything like that so it can never be seen again. And now they're just deleting shows and beloved programming that people grew up on, including myself. I am a massive Looney Tunes fan. When I was a kid, I remember probably a very early birthday. I don't know what age, maybe 6 in like grade 1 or something like that. My parents got me a double disc feature, like a double feature disc of 2 seasons of Looney Tunes cartoons. And honestly, I might be able to find it somewhere, but I remember watching that front to back a billion times, and I loved Looney Tunes as a kid. So it's sort of like the Muppets. Like, the Muppets are beloved and so much fun, and it really makes me wonder why we don't get more original things with the Looney Tunes, or why we don't get more original things with the Muppets, because they are constantly looking for ways to make more family-oriented stuff, and how can we get people to go to the theaters and have fun things for everyone to watch? And it's like, because you throw away these characters that are beloved, honestly, there's money to be made there. Even adults would go and see the Muppets movies or the Looney Tunes movies. Everyone from every age loves the Looney Tunes and the Muppets. So I don't know. This just speaks to a larger issue with Warner Brothers and many underlying things that have been slowly adding up, where if the DC universe does not work under James Gunn and Peter Safran, Warner Brothers is screwed. They will be bought out. I don't know by who. Maybe by Apple. If they're bought by Disney, no way that's going to go through. That's going to be broken up as a monopoly. And I don't know if Apple could afford, well, maybe Apple could afford it. They're like $1 trillion company, and they lose a bunch of money on streaming, which we're going to talk about in a moment after another story. But it's weird. Like, if Warner Brothers goes under, if they've already changed to like Warner Brothers Discovery, and they've been merging various companies, and it's like, are they going to turn into a 20th Century Fox type thing where they used to be a huge studio and now they're underneath Disney and they're just like this one subset type thing that's controlled by a higher entity that owns a billion different things already? Disappointing is what I want to say, that Warner Brothers is just treating Looney Tunes like trash. And here we go. Here is, however, a revolution, a rebellion with Looney Tunes. Deadline, Variety, The Hollywood Reporter, everyone is reporting officially Warner Brothers is negotiating a big sale for the shelved Coyote vs. Acme movie. And Warner Brothers was saying, oh no, we deleted it. There's no way it could ever be found again. And interesting that when someone comes in to buy it, then it's okay, and it's apparently still existing. So Gareth West's distributor financer Ketchup Entertainment, who just did the Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie, which we'll talk about today, is negotiating an all rights acquisition in the $50 million range for the animated live action film Coyote vs. Acme. The pact isn't finalized, and there's still a chance it doesn't make, but it's heading in the right direction. Should it get over the line, the film would get a theatrical release in 2026. The deal would mark a significant and record outlay for Ketchup, hilarious name for a distribution company or production company, whatever they are, Ketchup Entertainment. That's just a fantastic name in general, whose previous releases have included Michael Keaton starred Goodrich, comic book reboot Hellboy the Crooked Man, Ben Affleck's thriller Hypnotic, and Michael Franco's Jessica Chastain drama Memory. Now, Coyote vs. Acme is directed by David Green and written by May-December scribe Sammy Birch, as well as DC Studios co-boss James Gunn and Jeremy Slater. Coyote vs. Acme is based on the Looney Tunes characters and the New Yorker humor article Coyote vs. Acme by Ian Frazier. Will Forte, John Cena, and Lana Condor star in the movie, which follows Wile E. Coyote, who, after Acme products fail him one too many times in his dogged pursuit of the Roadrunner, decides to hire a billboard lawyer to sue the Acme Corporation. The case pits Wile E. Coyote and his lawyer, played by Will Forte, against the latter's intimidating former boss, John Cena, but a growing friendship between man and cartoon stokes their determination to win. Now, here's the weirdest part. Despite test screening well, as Deadline says, the project became a high-profile casualty of Warner Brothers cost-cutting 2 years ago, and it's been sitting on the shelf for more than a year. The studio reportedly screened the movie to a string of buyers in early 2024 with a price tag of around $70 million, which is how much the film is said to have cost. Studio sources claim to us that they didn't get any offers at the time. People were freaking pissed about this, and it was like potentially a tax write-down type thing. The film's star, Will Forte, called the move fucking bullshit, adding, I can't tell you possibly why the decision was made to not release it, but it makes my blood boil. Tax write-offs is like a big thing that movies are just like being deleted, exactly like the Batgirl movie, which I don't know, I've heard mixed things about it. I've heard some people say that like, oh, it was really fun and really good, but then, you know, DC took a new turn, and then other people had said that it wasn't very good. The directors, they did, was it Bad Boys for Life or Bad Boys Ride and Die? The third one, and people loved the action in that movie, no, they did the new one, the fourth one, and the action's great in that. I've seen that one, I haven't seen the third one, so I'm very confused how the hell is this not coming out? But I am glad that we're potentially going to see Coyote vs. Acme. People have long complained about the tax write-offs, but now you need to put your money where your mouth is. If it gets a theatrical release, you better be there on day one, putting butts in seats and getting your friends to go, getting your families to go, whoever. Tell everybody to go see it, just as a big screw you to Warner Brothers, okay? All right, finally, this is going to be our last news story before before we move into our Severance review. Variety this week reported that Apple is losing over $1 billion a year on their streaming service. Apple's video streaming business is still firmly in the red, according to a new report. The Apple TV Plus premium subscription service is losing more than $1 billion per year, according to an anonymously sourced report by The Information published Thursday. The tech giant is annually down from $5 billion in the past years, according to the article. Now, here is the most hilarious point. $1 billion is more money than I could ever picture. How could you have $1 billion? What would that look like? You would never have to think about buying anything. And $1 billion for Apple, however, that's nothing. That's pocket change for this trillion-dollar company. And as Variety says, of course, $1 billion in annual losses are practically a rounding error for Apple in the context of its overall business, which is mostly fueled by iPhone sales. Apple generated $391 billion in revenue and posted a net profit of $93.7 billion for its fiscal year. Holy shit. If you think about it, yeah, literally every probably 3 in 4 people has an iPhone that I meet, at least. I feel like I have a few friends with like Google Pixels or Samsungs or whatever it is, but now it just seems like the default everyone goes to is the iPhone because, you know, it used to be that you could have group chats and iMessenger and stuff, but now you can do that with Google Pixels. So there's much more of an incentive to branch out and try other phones. Now, the company does not disclose financial or subscriber metrics for Apple TV Plus. The streaming business is part of Apple's services segment, which includes Apple Music, the App Store, and other lines of business. Revenue in the services segment hit $26.3 billion for the year-end 2024 quarter, up 14% year over year. It's wild to me how much money Apple makes every year. And actually, speaking of Apple, I don't think we talked about this last week because I think it was announced after I had recorded the show, but Ted Lasso is getting a 4th season. It is actually coming back. Like, that was fully confirmed by the writers and directors, Jason Sudeikis, everybody, and it's going to be Ted coaching a women's team. I don't understand why. We had this huge goodbye farewell season that everyone was like, oh, it's so sad we're having a goodbye farewell season, and now we're back like 2 years later. Kind of stupid. And also that last season is just, I don't know, it does take a bit of a nosedive. The finale has one of the ugliest shots I've ever seen at Coach Beard's wedding at Stonehenge. Is one of the worst things I've ever seen put to screen, but weird choice. All right, I'm gonna limit it to 4 news stories this week because Severance, guys, we have a lot to cover. I got lots of things I want to talk about. It's so hard to review TV shows because it's like 10 different episodes that you need to review, and you don't want to spoil things in the later episodes by talking about things that happen in the first few episodes, but let's do it. Let's talk Severance Season 2, timestamps below. Let's jump into it. All right, coffee is sipped, Severance is watched. Severance Season 2. Severance is a thriller sci-fi show that started in 2022, had like 3 years between seasons, and finally came out this January. Season 2, the directors were Ben Stiller, Sam Donovan, Yuta Reiswitz, and Jessica Lee Gagne. The writers, Dan Erickson, Mohammed El-Masri, Wei Ning Yu, Anna Yuang Monch, Megan Ritchie, Eric Wagner, Mark Friedman, Adam County, and Casey Perry. And the budget for season 2, $200 million with $20 million per episode. That's pretty nuts, but honestly, it pays off because it is a gorgeous looking show. Season 2 reviews, it currently is holding 95% on Rotten Tomatoes with a 70% popcorn meter, which is like the audience score. The show overall has 8.7 on IMDb. The synopsis for Severance: Mark leads a team of office workers whose memories have been surgically divided between their work and personal lives. When a mysterious colleague appears outside of work, it begins a journey to discover the truth about their jobs. The show stars Adam Scott as Mark, Britt Lauer as Helly, Patricia Arquette as Harmony Cobell, Zach Cherry as Dylan, John Turturro as Irving, Deacon Lockman, she was actually in the most recent Planet of the Apes. She plays Miss Casey / Gemma, Christopher Walken as Burt Goodman, Trammell Tillman as Milchick, Sarah Bach as Eustace Huang, Sydney Cole Alexander as Natalie, Jen Tulloch as Devin, and just a bunch of others. We also have Merritt Weaver as Gretchen this season. She was just phenomenal. It's a great cast. It's one of my favorite casts in a TV show. Everyone is so good in this cast. So my initial thoughts on season 2 of Severance, here we go. A really good season. It just constantly created questions while delivering so many answers, and they really raised the bar for me this season. I think there's always a risk when you have a hit first season that the second season is going to underperform because people don't like the direction it's going in and they miss season one. We'll talk about that in a second, but I think they really knocked it out of the park and set up so many great things. But let's start with the performances. Performance-wise, I'm going to stick to our MDR department right now. I just want to talk about the four of them because we'll talk about the various characters, but I want to start with Adam Scott as the Marks. He really stepped it up this season. Like everyone, like everything about the show, I think Adam Scott really kicked it into gear. He's amazing in season one, but there's a lot of moments where the praise should really be going to John Turturro, Patricia Arquette, and Trammell Tillman, but I think Adam Scott really earns that Emmy this season and leads this show. He's a great lead in season one, but there's a lot of, sharing around and like really great moments from everyone. There still is this season, but I really felt like Adam Scott changed into a real show lead this season, which he's not a stranger from. He was the lead of Party Down. He was a major co-lead kind of on Parks and Rec, or an important character in that, but I loved every choice he made with the Marks this season. He really brings it to life. Then we have Britt Lauer as Helly/Helena. The choices she makes as well this season are just phenomenal. I love her distinction between the two. She and Adam Scott just have such good chemistry in every read and really just play everything so wonderfully, and there's just so many crazy moments between them this season. I loved how they kept it all alive. The choices she makes as Helly and Helena are so fascinating sometimes, like just the little differences in attitude. I feel like with every other character, you can really tell the differences between their innie and outie, but Helly and Helena, in some weird ways, and specifically with a plot line they chose this season, it's hard to tell the differences in moments, and you wonder, like, are they just one person? We'll jump into lots of stuff with the characters. Then Zach Cherry as Dylan, they really gave him even more time to shine, and they gave him a phenomenal character arc this season that I really loved. The character of Dylan is fascinating, particularly his outie. We learn a little bit about his outie in season one, but they really dive into his psyche in season two, and there's just a lot of really good stuff that comes from that. And then finally, John Turturro as Irving/Irving B, the Irvings. He really pops off once again. John Turturro is a fantastic actor, and I love that he chose to do this show, and he is just so fantastic as Irving. And I think Irving is a lot of people's favorite character. He's definitely one of mine. I would say if people had to pick, like if you did a survey, who's your favorite character, most people would be picking Mr. Milchick or Irving. And John Turturro does it again, guys. He breaks your heart. He makes you laugh. Sometimes you're angry with him. You don't understand him, but then everything becomes clear, and he's just so heartbreaking to watch. But this whole cast is just amazing. Mr. Milchick, Miss Cobell, it's just so great, and they even add new people that we're going to talk about. But directing wise, again, this season, I think what you really should take away from season 2 of Severance is how they raised the bar. They certainly did not waste their time with the 3 years between seasons because they made it count. I think directing wise specifically, the show really stepped it up technically. The directing of the opening shot of the season that's in the trailer where he's running and the camera's swooping around, and Adam Scott and Ben Stiller said they watched a bunch of Tom Cruise running and how you should run in like action movies and stuff, and it works so well. But I have to say, my favorite director this season, I think a lot of other people will say their favorite director this season, Jessica Lee Gagne, Canadian director. She's fantastic. She absolutely pops off in her episode. The internet went crazy for her episode. Her episode was Chikai Bardo, I believe. Chikai Bardo, which was episode 7 of season 2, and my god, there is an amazing shot that everyone was convinced that has to be CGI, and then when they said it's done practically all in camera, my head blew up. I didn't understand how they could possibly do that, but again, they're just putting so much work to make this show as great as possible. And I was actually listening to Adam Scott on Smartless, and he says like shooting a season for the show takes 9 or 10 months, which is so long. Like, my dear god, the only show that takes longer is Stranger Things because it takes 4 years for a single season, and these kids are all now in their 40s and divorced multiple times. And you know what? I'll take multiple years between Severance seasons. I'll take 2 at max, actually. I'd take that back. I'm being hyperbolic, but I would take 2 years between every season if they constantly are putting out quality like this. And I was actually watching a social media video for CBC Arts today done by a guy that I actually follow, Patrick Tomaso. He lives in Toronto. He's a really cool cinematographer, YouTuber that I watch, and and he did a video with CBC Arts today talking about how Severance is so like anti-TikTok because a lot of things you watch, and it's so funny he put out this video today because last night I'm watching Snow White and almost everyone in every shot are perfectly center frame. And you know why that is? So you can post a video on social media cropped and you're never going to have people sitting outside of the frames of a TikTok or an Instagram reel or whatever it is. So you put everyone center frame, so when you crop it, there's constantly the attention of the frame or the subject of the frame in the middle. Whereas, as Patrick said, Jessica Lee Gagne, and specifically, she loves to put people at the very edge of the frame. And there's so much of that in the show in general, of just proper filmmaking and proper television attention to details, and not just trying to format a show of, oh yes, you can make this amazing thing, but just make sure you can make it editable, or we have the ability to edit it so we can post it on social media easily. So seriously, shout out to Jessica Lee Gagne. She made one of the most gorgeous episodes of television ever, and one of the best, I think, the best episodes of Severance in general as well. But let's talk about cast additions. We got some really great additions this season. Miss Huang, who is a literal child working in the Wintertide Fellowship program, so she is working under Mr. Milchick, or she's kind of working over Mr. Milchick, I guess. She's like a ladder between, or a connection between the board and Mr. Milchick, which the board is interesting because they're much less involved towards the second half of the season. Like, there's so many, the board would like to talk to you moments in season 1 and the start of season 2, but then it sort of fades away, which is interesting. But we also have Mr. Drummond, who is on the board. He's much more involved in season 2. There's a lot more episodes of just him having dialogue with people, which we don't really get in season 1. Like, he was a mystery character until we met the board. So I really appreciated him sort of being a bigger character in season 2. Not just bigger, because he is literally a gigantic human being. Like, he is huge. He is so tall, and I would be terrified to meet him. But I think he's a really fun inclusion. And then we have Fields, who we see in the season 1 finale. That is Bert's Audie's husband. Of course, there was the episode where Irving went for dinner with Fields and Bert, and it's just a very interesting dynamic. I won't spoil what happens, of course, because we are in non-spoilers, but that is a major moment. So there's a lot of really fun cast additions, specifically in one later episode in the season that some would call a bottle episode or just like a filler episode. I highly disagree. The only episode I would maybe call filler, or borderline call filler, is actually the second to last episode, where it was just an hour of setting things up. And yes, that's important, but I did see one fun Reddit comment that was like, if you really think about it, with that episode 9, I think you could skip episode 9 and still understand what's happening when you get to the finale. I don't think there's a lot of moments wasted in the show, however. And they really cement the company in season 2 as a religion. Like, this is a full-on cult. In season 1, I often thought of it more as like Amazon and this big corporation, versus season 2. And there were hints in season 1 that this is, of course, a religious belief and like a much bigger thing. But to me, season 2 really, I love how they stepped it up and being like, no, this is not an Amazon warehouse. This is a full-on cult that is indoctrinating people and doing experiments and stuff like that. And I really love that tonal shift, that it's more like trying to get out of Scientology or something like that. There's a lot of religious texts and beliefs that are put in place and rules that are talked about, and these different, myths that are like in our real world religious things that are inspiring here. I really also liked how they opened it up to some more social issues. I mean, season 1 has so many great things talking about the morality of being severed and how the public treats severed people. But season 2, within the company itself, they dive into racism, and that was one of my favorite moments of the season. The fact that they started talking about the racial organizing, or who is in power where within the company. They really try to break open a can of worms here, which I appreciate. Like, Mr. Milchick is a black man in charge at a very white company, and within this like religious structure as well. Like, that can't be ignored. Same with Natalie. She's the only other person of color that's higher up. Like, above the MDR team, there is 2 people of color, and everyone else is very creepy white and like cultish white as well, like incestuous white. So I do like that they started to navigate those themes, and they also moved into bodily autonomy and whose body is it, and the right to your body, like between the innie and the outie. The innies are starting to gain more and more consciousness and kind of individuality, fighting for themselves as their own people. When we meet them in season 1, by the time we get to the season finale of season season 1. Season 1 is about them starting to let go of this idea that they are only existing to work. And it's them constantly pushing the boundaries, pushing back against those in charge after Helly comes into play, which is ironic because Helly is the innie of, the owner of the company or whatever, Helena, or the CEO, whatever she is. So I really liked how they moved into new themes like racism and bodily autonomy. If your innie does something with your body, or your outie does something with your body, and them sort of fighting over not feeling comfortable with what was done. I like the line of morality between the innies and the outies that they really build on in season 2, and that was some of my favorite stuff in season 1 is like, this public perception and how people treat the innies versus the outies and people that are severed in general. But also, does love transcend this whole idea that Gemma is alive and her innie is working with her husband every day in season 1, and Mark is working with his wife every day, and they don't know, and they have no feelings for each other as their innies. But then their outies, of course, were soulmates. So it's very interesting to see what parts of people's personalities transcend the severance procedure, like Irving and Bert. Are they attracted to each other outside of work now that they're friends? Dylan's wife is allowed to visit him at work, and she meets his innie, and again, we're sort of reflecting on the relationship and the love aspects that can be in and out of work, and how our consciousness and, do soulmates exist? I think that's also something that it's trying to ask. Is there one true life form for another true life form, or is it just all personality matching? And these are also very different people, but also what is life? When do the innies start to become their own person? Even if they were only made for 8 hours a day, they all clearly have dreams, they have hopes, they love, they have feelings, aspirations, and opinions. Like, where do we draw the line, and where does one start and the other ends? And the whole reintegration process is part of that, because there is a question asked in this season: if you reintegrate, whose personality do you have once you reintegrate? Like, it's a blending, but how much of each of you? And there is, his friend at the start of the show, and how we sort of get introduced to the whole severance issues and the reintegration process through his friend that escaped. Which person and which proportions am I blended outside of work? But back to season 2 and the fact that this is a second season of a hit series. They set up so much amazing stuff in season 1, and you have a million questions by the time you finish the first season. And I really enjoyed that they did origin episodes this season. Like, we really do understand the backgrounds. They don't try to keep everything a mystery. Every week they were solving a mystery or answering a big question that, as I said in all of my weekly reviews on social media, a lot of shows would be waiting till a 4th or 5th season to do this. And it felt like Severance every week was slowly revealing itself, which I really appreciated. They're not trying to just keep this afloat as long as possible because we want to just keep the show going so everyone can stay employed. It's like, no, we're going to tell the story as long as it feels like it's earned and like there is a story to tell. So I just really appreciated that aspect of it. And they do reveal a lot of mysteries that sort of are what this whole show is about in some ways. Many of the things are revealed. Did any of the mysteries disappoint me? No. And I feel like when you are constantly theorizing what something is about, you're always going to be disappointed with what it actually is, because we make so many big conspiracy theories, and then you find out and you're like, oh, that was kind of like the first thing I thought, or one of the smaller things I thought, and you're like, oh, so it's not this crazy backstory, which would have been hilarious. So I think maybe that's why some people will get disappointed, but at the same time, even if it reveals a lot of the fabrics of our world, it sets up so much for season 3, which they have renewed this morning. They just announced that Severance season 3 will officially be going ahead. Ben Stiller has said it won't take 3 years between seasons. Like, they're very much in the process of writing it. I'm very excited. I think it sets up so much, and I love that they don't put off the mystery. They just tell you what it is by the end of the season, what you want to know, and what the big mystery of this season is, because it is very different from season 1. The big mystery of this season is just fully answered, and then it leads into another issue. So, like, to me, this is just a phenomenal season of television. But do I think there are things that didn't quite work? Possibly. I did think it sort of leaves some characters behind, or they just never show up again, which I kind of hinted at before. Like, we're introduced to Fields, who is Bert's husband. He's in one episode, and there's kind of this mystery of like, who is this guy? But we never really go back to it, so maybe that's going to be talked about in season 3, or something's going to happen with that. Or even Natalie, like I said, who is the connection between the board and Mr. Milchek or Miss Cobell. She's only in the first maybe 5 episodes, something like that. And you don't really see her for the rest of the season. And it's kind of curious why she isn't around. Maybe, did I miss that? Like, does she go somewhere? I don't think so. I don't know. And same with Rickon, Devon's husband, very much in the first few episodes. And he's actually approached because, was that in season 1 where they found his book in the office and they love it? Well, he's approached by Lumen to basically write propaganda for the innies. And that just sort of never pops up again. And we never hear from him after episode 4, I would say. No matter how they moved the show on, some people wouldn't be happy. Like, when you're watching a show, you fall in love with it in that first season, and then it answers some mysteries, and season 2 has to move on to other problems and other dynamics, and it needs to expand. When some people are a little bit bullheaded and like, no, I want it to just stay as season 1 because that's why I like the show. Maybe that's why it's like a 70% audience score, because some people don't like the mysteries being solved because they want it to be something else. But I don't know. I thought it was really great. And like, did the finale need to be 76 minutes? I would argue probably not. I think you could have trimmed it down to be a little bit tighter, and it was a slow burn, and I didn't hate it at all. I actually thought it was probably like a perfect finale, and I loved every step of the way. I am completely happy with season 2, but let's talk about for a second before I get into spoilers, the week-to-week versus binging model. I binged season 1 at the start of January before this came out, and of course I love the binging model, but I think this show, more than any other show on television, like ever, needs to be a week-to-week show. This type of show where every week it's conspiracy theories from episode to episode has to be week to week. A show like Daredevil Born Again, which I'm really enjoying, it's not that much to theorize about or look forward to week. It's just like a fun weekly show to catch. But if they did drop it in the binge model, I don't think anyone would be too pissed. But look, overall, season 2 was a hit, and I think they really pulled it off. It keeps moving the show in, I think, very natural ways. There was never a storyline where I was like, oh, what is this for? Like, I wasn't ever curious about this. Every week I was like, oh, we're finally doing this. And it was something that I was looking forward to, or I was hoping they would do. So it's constantly keeping you guessing. It creates so much fun weekly discussion and theorizing that the internet just really embraced. I would give season 2 a 4.5 out of 5. It was so much fun. Go watch Severance. I don't think I've spoiled or ruined anything or any mysteries, but let's jump into spoilers. All right, let's do some freaking spoilers for season 2 of Severance. So I want to start way back at the first episode of season 2 with the Microdat uprising. The fact that Lumen, they told all of the innies that, oh yeah, well, your actions last year led to this big reform thing with all of the innies from around the world, and they show them a newspaper. I feel like we didn't address it in the moment. That was all bullshit. That's all propaganda from Lumen trying to make the innies feel better and be like, no, we made your life all better. That's what the whole first episode is about. Like when the innies return in episode 3, 1, 2, I can't remember which one, but I feel like we never talked about that, but I loved that. But I want to focus specifically on Dylan's storyline for a little bit. So Zach Cherry really stepped it up as Dylan this season, and I love the material they gave him, taking him from sort of a less focused on character in the background, supporting Helly and Mark and everything they do, and Irving getting to have a romance in the office. Well, they give Dylan a little bit of office romance, but it's with his own wife when she's visiting him, and that's where we sort of get that morality of the whole Severance thing of like, am I cheating on my husband with his innie because aren't they the same person? Does love transcend the severed procedure or the severance procedure? I don't think it does, clearly, because Gemma and Mark don't recognize each other at work. With Dylan as well, he gets fired in one episode, and then we see sort of this severed person prejudice in the outside world where he goes and actually applies for a job, and he has an interview at a door factory, which, if you didn't know, the creator of the show worked at a door factory when he thought of the idea for Severance because it was so boring he wished he could turn off his brain for 8 hours. So I really loved everything they did with Dylan. They gave him a really full character arc, and by the end of the season, him and his wife are very much on the rocks, where his outie is like, well, you clearly cheated on me with myself at work, and we see a rivalry between the innie and the outie, just like Helly has a rivalry with her outie, just like Mark and Mark S. Both Marks have a rivalry with each other based on their interests. So I really loved how they constantly are pitting innies and outies against each other, and that's this whole season, is setting up this rivalry between our innies and our outies. And I think that's what season 3 is going to be about Mark wanting to stay alive with Helly wanting to stay alive with Mark, them trying to save each other when, Lumen could easily just turn the the switches and turn their innies off. So I don't know where that's going to lead, but the Dylan stuff was just really fantastic this season, that he wanted to quit, his outie wanted to quit, but then when his outie learned that you wanted to quit, and how proud he made his wife, he was like, I love that I have a version of myself that's so good at their job and makes my wife proud, and I hope someday I'm like you. I thought, honestly, the most underrated part of the finale was the Dylan letter. I thought that was so touching, and how there was just like this mutual understanding and appreciation for each other, and how the outie is like, you're the better version of myself and I want to be like you. So that was really great. But we also got some other answers, and then we're going to jump into the Reddit theory. So the goat people, we find out why they're goats. It's because every time they finish microdata refining a big file, they sacrifice a goat along with the person that they're sacrificing. So that ties directly into what I want to talk about now, which is, what is MDR? What is the microdata refinement people? What are they doing? Well, each file is creating a new innie within a test subject. So Mark has been MDRing his own wife. She has 25 innies by the time of the season 2 finale, and they are trying to fully test the chip to see how, room to room, and they have 25 different rooms. So all of these file names like Cold Harbor, Allentown, whatever it is, that's a different innie. So each file is creating an innie, but the numbers represent the different tempers in a subject's mind. I really like that reveal, especially revealing that Mark's been MDRing his own wife for 25 files is absolutely nuts. They have been creating basically versions of themselves, and they're doing tests almost on themselves in a way to test the limits of the innie outie border, or whatever you want to call that separation. But I think the finale just did a lot of really great things of not only finally revealing what the MDR department does, but showing other departments as well. Once again, I love when we see the other departments, but we get a marching band department. We get another dance show. Hell yeah, that was one of my favorite moments of season 1. And Trammell Tillman, dude, amazing. Like, I think he is going to win Best Supporting Actor at the Golden Globes and the Emmys. He's going to just sweep award season, possibly along with Adam Scott. I think Adam Scott is definitely going to win something, but Trammell Tillman is just going to win everything because he had an outstanding season and he is dancing his life away. Probably the funniest moment of the finale was he basically tells Dylan to kill himself when he gives him the envelope and be like, I don't care what you do, here's what you're out, he said. And then he just sprints out of the room, and it's even funnier knowing that he is sprinting out of the room because he's late for his performance once Mark finishes the file. That was brilliant. But the MDR reveal does, and a lot of people on Reddit, Twitter, Instagram, everything, we're all commenting, wait, so if Mark is refining Gemma, who are Dylan, Irving, and Helly refining? Because they're not all refining Gemma, were they? Or were they all refining Gemma and she was the one test subject for the last 2 years and they were all working on files? But I thought Mark has now completed by himself 25 files, so he is the only one working on Gemma. And is this goodbye for Irving? I honestly maybe think so. I think that might be it, that John Turturro is not coming back, and it's just, I think season 3 is going to really focus on Helly and Mark, and they don't have time for the side characters maybe. He gets sent away with Bert in like this, opposite of the season 1 finale where they are like, I'm not ready, and then he says he is ready when he says goodbye in episode 9. So I think Irving's done. As for his arc, I think it was a fantastic arc. So I mean, if it is his goodbye, that's fine, because I think we got everything we needed. As for Helly's arc, and a lot of people are theorizing about that final shot that, maybe like she's becoming more like Helena. I highly disagree. She's doing something for love, and love makes you do crazy things. But Helena taking over for the first 4 episodes was mind-blowing, because I never picked that up, and I could just never, I don't know, just like everyone else other than Irving, I was like, how the hell did we not see that? Because they are so different, but she plays her so well, and it's just such a freaky thing. So did she ever come back in? And people were theorizing at the end of the season that Helena had taken over again. I don't think that's the case, but let's talk about the actual ending, then I'm going to jump into a few Reddit comments. So the 2 Marks, Gemma and Helly. The end of the season, as you all know now from watching, he finally gets Gemma out, proves she is alive. Is that going to be, the end of Gemma, or is she going to be crazy and things are going to go wrong with her and someone yells, she'll kill them all, or they'll kill them all? Is someone going to kill all the innies? Is someone going to kill all of Gemma's innies by going outside that kills all of her innies, or something like that? I don't know what it is, but I am interested in who's going to be killed. But the ending, of course, is Mark saves, and this is innie Mark, and Helly save Gemma, kill Drummond, release Gemma outside to the stairway, and then Mark does not go with her. He turns around and runs away with Helly, finale, and now I think it's going to be the Innie revolt, that there is going to be a true revolution inside of the company, which I'm looking forward to. I'm very curious just what they're going to do with season 3. I already was missing like Devin, Rickon, and all of the sort of outie Mark stuff. I feel like we got that a little bit less as the season went on, or him just like going and living his life. But I really liked how they evolved, and I think what the show has just done so well, and my friend also said this morning, is making us believe that these are truly two different people because we know how different they are personality wise. But at the end of the day, they are not. And it's a sad reality that we need to accept. Like, someone is going to die. One of them has to die. There is no keeping it as two people. And I don't think there's any way that this is going to end up in a happy manner. All right, let's go to some Reddit comments that I want to read out. So this first one from Blind Peach says, Gemma was just imprisoned and tortured for 2 years, potentially believing her husband to be moved on, yet she holds out hope, only to be saved by her husband. Then, 2 minutes later, watch her husband run off with the leader of the company that tortured her. I cannot even imagine. My initial feeling at the end of the episode was, Mark, you asshole. Like, I was so pissed. But of course, it's Innie Mark, and he doesn't understand fully what's going on. He doesn't care because he's in love with Helly, and he has no feelings towards Gemma or Miss Casey, I guess. Another one from Hooray, It's Kyle. The chip was never as effective as they claimed. That's what they've been testing all along. That's why the Innies have to live in such a sterile, backroomsy environment where the most intense emotions they get come from the melon parties and finger traps, because the chip can't actually block out deeper emotional reactions. Remember how quickly Milchek cut off Mark S. in season 1, episode 1 when he started to express grief. But at the same time, and as the first person that replied said that, why would they constantly have Gemma, who is Miss Casey, around Mark if they know the chips aren't that effective? But at the same time, they're saying they're not as effective as they claimed. So I think Lumen is under the impression that these chips really work, but there's these constant leakages and people falling in love both in and outside of work and having the same feelings carrying over from their innies and outies. So yeah, I don't know. It's very interesting to just talk about where does one person start and where does one person end. Another one is, how did they even know about the baby crib memory? Did she tell them she was trying to have a baby with Mark? How do they know so much about her personal life? Well, remember that the whole flashback episode was showing that the doctor that's testing on her downstairs was her doctor in the real world as well when they were getting, is it IVF treatments, I guess? Because Mark and Gemma are trying to have a baby. She has the miscarriage, and now they're trying to get treatments so she can have a baby, and it's really hard. And you can see the Lumen water drop at the top. But one last one that I want to read from the Irish Star is talking about the online theory that Rickon is actually a goat. So one eagle-eyed fan recently compiled a list of clues supporting this theory. They pointed to several telling moments throughout the latest outing, including a scene in which he shares a photo of himself scaling a vertical mountainside, much like a mountain goat is able to do. The post also points to Rickon's friends displaying goatish behavior, including Mark's sister Devin, noting they smell strange. Rickon also has a shaggy beard similar to a goat and is heard almost bleeding during a reading of his book. I just love that theory a lot and thought it was hilarious. But guys, I think I'm going to wrap it up there. That's been Severance Season 2. What a ride it's been. I'm looking forward to Season 3 whenever we get that. I don't know. It'll probably be in 2027, I would say. I don't think we're going to get it anytime soon. But a really great season. And honestly, I want to go back and restart it in a few months because it's just such a rewatchable show with so many details that are so fun to talk about. But let's move into what else I watched. All right, what else I watched? I have 7 movies, I believe, and 3 TV shows, as well as 1 book I'm working my way through. I will apologize, there was no comic read-through last Sunday, and last week's episode was delayed because I was super sick and bedridden on Sunday, but we are better now. I'm going to try and get a comic video out for Iron Man, Mask and the Iron Man on Sunday night, so if you want to hear me talk about that, go to my social media pages. But for now, let's go into TV shows first, and then I'm going to talk about my 7 movies. We have our penultimate episode of The White Lotus Season 3. The finale will be out by the time you are hearing this. Monday night, I'm going to put out a social media review of what I thought of Season 3, and I made a theories video a couple weeks ago, so maybe I'll do a reaction type thing to that. But full moon party, spoilers for The White Lotus Season 3, skip ahead a minute if you don't want to hear. Sort of a crazy episode. They've gone the Game of Thrones route, and they are for sure doing incest. I am so confused by the character of Lachlan. Like, I thought he was going to be somehow killed, or I don't know, just I suspected Saxon Saxon would be taking advantage of Lachlan in some way, when in fact it's actually Lachlan that's being predatory on Saxon while they're on drugs, and Saxon doesn't do drugs, but he's pressured into it because of Lachlan. And Sam Rockwell's monologue this week was that was wild. That was a crazy stream of thoughts, and Rick's face was hilarious. It was just a really good episode. I also loved all the three ladies that are out, and I love how crazy they are while partying. And yeah, season 3 is very messy. Like, I don't feel as dirty after watching this season as season 2, which was just a really rough watch, and I loved it, but I felt very gross after watching. But season 3 is entertaining, so I would watch it. Then I watched 3 episodes of Daredevil Born Again. I finally caught up to the present one. Episode 2 was very good. Episode 3, which was The Hollow of His Hand. I love the White Tiger court case. I thought that stuff was all so fascinating, and the actor who passed away, actually, that played the White Tiger, I thought he was really good in the role as well. But also just Matt Murdock taking on these dirty cops, and the whole NYPD was just so good. Episode 4, Sic Semper Systema. I am not a big fan of John Bernthal as the Punisher. I just don't find him that interesting. He kind of just mumbles every scene and has one tone every time he shows up in Daredevil. That's why I can never get through season 3, because I'm just not intrigued in their dynamic. Charlie Cox continues to blow me away week after week as Matt Murdock, but I don't find John Bernthal that interesting as Frank Castle. I'm still looking forward to the rest of the series, however. Then we have Survivor 48, episode 4, The House Party's Over. We got a tribe swap, and we have one of the best blindsides of the new era. Just a great play. I'm trying to remember the last time we had a pre-jury crazier, like a pre-merge blindside like this, where there was just a huge minority advantage play, and Kyle and Camilla are playing. The California girls, damn, I think Thomas was a fascinating player, but he is, like a lot of people are saying online, he was such an enabler, like telling, oh, here, Shaheen, you go through his bag, instead of like, just doing it himself. Every crazy idea he had, he would just suggest it and try to get other people to do it, which I think a lot of the time is a sign of a really great Survivor player. I think in the new era, if they were going to maybe bring someone back for 50 from this season, I could see Thomas coming back, and Jeff sort of hinted at it on the Propaganda Survivor podcast On Fire, but it was another good episode of Survivor this week. It's just crazy, the extra vote, the idol play, and Kyle and Camilla just selling it so hard. Kudos to them. But let's move into movies, starting with Opus and The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie. I saw the two of them on Monday night in a double feature, posted a fun little vlog. Opus was interesting. I do feel like it wasn't, committed to its ideas and didn't really have an interest in diving deep into them. I think, look, Io Debre's a great actress, but even she is kind of stiff in the movie and doesn't present a lot. I thought John Malkovich was pretty funny, but at the same time, a lot of the times it's just him mumbling his way through the scene. Ironically, Melody, whatever his name is, I thought his music was really good in the movie. Like, I was like, oh goddamn, I'm actually kind of enjoying these beats. But it's also just a really sloppy movie. I posted in my Letterboxd review that there are a painful number of continuity errors. Like, there's a YouTube video that's played at the start of the movie where they're all watching together in the office, and the timestamp on the bottom just stays at 34 seconds while they're watching, and it doesn't move for over a minute. And I was like, what? They just didn't record a video and just play that for them and just keep pausing it between cuts or whatever. Very strange that they just decided, no, let's keep it at 34 seconds, don't pay attention to it. Also, like, someone goes to close a door and it opens back up because they didn't fully close it, and they just decided to not do another take or use another take because it's like, whatever, the door just opened back up, even though the scene is supposed to be them closing the door. And there's a scene in the end of the movie where someone's interviewing someone, and a recording device on the table changed positions so many times and jumped back and forth between like on the table and on top of a book. And I was like, how is nobody that's editing this movie paying attention to the continuity errors? It was sort of frustrating. I gave it 2.5 stars. Then The Day the Earth Blew Up, a really fun Porky Pig and Daffy Duck story. I love Daffy Duck. He's just hilarious. Again, I'm a huge Looney Tunes fan. Just a lot of fun. It has a lot of heart, physical comedy, and goofs and gaffs, and I love the animation. It all just looks really good. If you're looking for a family movie, go watch The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie. 3.5 stars. Then the final movie I rewatched for my Marvel ranking MCU franchises video for YouTube that's coming out this week, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I was an uncontrollable mess watching it. I was just sobbing my eyes out. Every character arc works so well. The use of Dog Days Are Over at the end of the movie is just tears me apart, man. I was just sobbing like a baby baby, and that's why I've been putting off rewatching it for so long, because I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be a wreck. I'm gonna have a headache after I cry. I don't know about you guys, but after I cry really hard, I get a headache. But it was great. 4.5 stars. Then the best new movie I saw this week by a country mile, Black Bag, Steven Soderbergh's Black Bag. So much hype for it online, and I was not disappointed. It is such a thrilling 90-minute spy thriller. I was telling my girlfriend, because she came with me, like during the movie, I probably came to 10 different conclusions of who could be responsible for the mystery that they're trying to solve, and I was just so bamboozled the whole time. It's got great performances. Michael Fassbender's interesting because he's such a funny guy in real life, but he only plays these super like straight-laced spy type dudes. So I don't know, I'd love to see him in like more of a comedy role at some point, but he's fantastic. Kate Blanchett, fantastic. Everyone is just so good in Black Bag. If I'm recommending any movie in the theaters right now, it's Black Bag. 4 stars. Then, oh dear God, the movie I tore apart on my social media review, The Electric State. I mean, what more can be said? Like I said in my review, it's climate change for the movie industry. It's so anti-art, it's unbelievable. Like, it's genuinely shocking. And I think the Russo brothers, they're good at translating things. Like in Community, they were constantly making spoof episodes that were like playing on Star Wars or playing on whatever it is in like the paintball episodes. Then they move into the Marvel universe where they're really just supervisors of an adaptation of a comic book. The Electric State, I've never read the graphic novel, and I was like, oh, I wonder if the book is that boring. And then I listened to the House of Cinema podcast, and Clara highlighted some of the things that they cut out from the book. It's shocking. It's terrifying, and it really makes you wonder why they cut it out. I gave it 1 star. It is the worst movie I have watched this year. It's literally worse than Kinda Pregnant, so I don't know what else I can say. And the final 2 movies I watched this week, The Alto Nights and Disney's Snow White. Saw them both last night in a double feature. The Alto Nights is a movie that my parents will no doubt fall asleep to at home. It was one of the most boring movies I have ever seen in a movie theater. It is just narrating on narrating on narrating, explaining the entire movie. And Robert De Niro plays both parts. He plays both leads for no reason. I thought they were twin brothers during the trailer and was like, oh, cool, he's playing twin brothers. Then you get there in person and they're completely different people. I was like, wait, why wouldn't you get like another really good actor to play the other guy? It was just a challenge or just like for fun for Robert De Niro that he was like, yeah, I'm going to play both guys. Why not? Hey, how you doing, eh? And it's just like a bunch of old men doing gangster impressions for 2 hours. After the movie, I tried to think like, okay, so what actually happened in that movie? And not tons happens. It's a lot of just the same thing kind of over and over again, people chatting and people, Robert De Niro explaining straight to the camera how he's feeling and how his buddy is feeling as well. And it was a little bit frustrating. I was like, that was a lot of just telling me things for 2 hours and not a lot of actual letting us breathe with the emotions of the story or having like beautiful shots. It was just boom, 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 thing after another, and sort of painful. 2 stars. And our final movie of the week, Disney's Snow White. Oh man, Rachel Ziegler just has a very good track record of working with terrible people and giving good performances. She is phenomenal as Snow White. She has an amazing singing voice. She gives it 110% in every scene, but holy shit, that movie was bland. Everyone is dressed as, well, I mean, just the bandits, like Jonathan and his bandits, I said in my Letterboxd review, are dressed like they shop at Blue Notes in like 2016 with these weird plaid half hoodie things that like I had when I was in high school. The weirdest costuming choices other than Snow White and the evil stepmother. Gal Gadot, absolutely terrible. She's not a good actress. How does she keep getting employment? I don't understand, but also it's just everything is, like I said in the Severance review, every shot is center frame. Everyone is just in the middle, smack dab in the middle of the screen so they can crop it for TikTok and post it with trailers and promotional clips and post it on social media. And it's so bland and boring and just dumb. It feels like there's no heart. It's a very A to B story. Like it's, the plot mostly makes sense. I would say sometimes it's like, well, for instance, like she eats the poison apple or whatever. The evil stepmother tells her as the old lady, oh, here, save this apple for your journey to go find your father or save the kingdom or whatever. And then she eats the apple right away, Snow White. It's like, wait, I thought that was supposed to for saving on the journey. It doesn't make sense. The old lady wouldn't tell her like, no, save it for your journey. Don't eat it right now. And I don't know. There's just a lot of things where like someone says they're going to do something or why something is happening and then they don't do it or they just like do it right away. And it was just, yeah, it was bland. I don't even know if children would like it because it was just so, I don't know, run from point to point and do it as basically as possible. So a bit of a bummer on that front. Hopefully next week is better. I'm seeing a few different movies and TV is going to be a little different next week because we don't have the White Lotus or Severance. I got to find other stuff to watch now. Maybe I'll watch that. Is it Adolescence on Netflix? Apparently that's really great. I'll check that out, but that has been what else I watched. And in fact, I think that's going to do it for episode 62, Severance, season 2. What a fun one that was. Guys, what a crazy TV show Severance is. Like, we are so lucky. But as always, please rate and review the show 5 stars on all of your streaming platforms, wherever you get your great podcasts, like Watcher of All Things, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Acast. Share it with a friend. You can comment right underneath on Spotify. Comment what you thought of Severance season 2. What are you watching this week? What are you looking forward to in theaters coming soon, or what TV shows are coming out soon? Review us on Apple Podcasts, all of the platforms, wherever. Give us 5 stars. Share it to your social media. Share it to your work group chat. If you're on the YouTube channel where a new video will be dropping this week, you can look forward to it. Like, subscribe, comment. Again, what did you think of Severance Season 2? And hit the notification bell so you know as soon as the video drops this week and when new podcast episodes come out every week. You can also email the show, watcherofallthings@gmail.com, to get in touch with me, or follow me on a bunch of different social media platforms. Instagram and Threads, we are at Watcher of All Things. TikTok, we are at watcher.of.all.things. I post stuff every day on all of the social media platforms. You can also follow my personal Letterboxd account. That's KikiJ70, KIKIJ70. Follow me there. Comment on one of my Letterboxd reviews that you found me through the show. I will follow you back. Let's build a little community. All that good stuff. Link down below. Next week, Death of a Unicorn. I was between Working Man, the Jason Statham movie, and Death of a Unicorn. I think I want to talk about Death of a Unicorn just because of how much it's being promoted, and it's a really star-studded cast and looks interesting. So look forward to that next week. But as for now, thank you all so much for the love, kindness, support. I love hearing from you guys every week. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.